Today is the 7th of October, 2024. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. 722 banks around the world report unrealized losses of over 50% of their capital on Sunday. And the Secret Space Force, global headquarters, and military generals from around the world go on a fact-finding mission, with a little help from us. And how does this tie to Elon Musk's urgent flight to meet with Trump operatives on Saturday night? And China's deep state tried to stage a fake alien invasion on Sunday night. Apparently, they intended to use the Middle East as a testing ground before they launched a worldwide fake attack. It's the 7th of October, 2024, and this is the Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report, where you get the real story behind world events in real history from the highest security clearance in the world. Well, let's get started. It's been quite a weekend, I'll tell you, around the world. A little bit crazy, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about what was going on with the banks this weekend. So firstly, as we've been discussing, the Omega AI has been dissipating rapidly. And the Omega AI was kind of the base route for all intelligence agencies, militaries, the financial system, telecommunications, internet, and much more. So it basically ran all electronics on planet Earth at one point in time. And the alpha was kind of behind it. So as that dissipates, the numbers on the screen don't quite look the same. But the reason why this report was requested, and it was requested by the UN Security Council, they were tasked with collecting all this data, was because the deep state wanted to know how much money is it going to take to run the world. Remember, they can't stop with world domination now, can they? Anyway, in their quest for world domination, they found out that it's much worse than they had thought. Originally, they were seeing some off-ledger funds, that kind of thing, on back screens, but it wasn't actually real money. It had no allocation numbers. I know that they were trading, and there was a bunch of other stuff that they could see. So by this weekend, when the UN Security Council was tasked to looking into this, all those numbers disappeared. So what did they see? About 50% less in all banks than they actually thought as far as their capital was concerned. And of course, the capital of every single bank in the world is tied to the Federal Reserve. So when those numbers disappeared, a lot of the numbers that the Fed was counting on also disappeared, leaving the deep state kind of scratching their head as to what they're going to do next. Well, there's always something to do next, isn't there? Okay, now the other problem that they're having is, although the governments have not officially come back, or the U.S. government anyway, has not officially come back to Washington, D.C., they're still in communication with a lot of the politicians, and there's a lot of heavy political pressure on both sides of the aisle, so both on the Republican side and on the Democratic side, to perform. And what I mean by perform is, there, you know, as I had said in the news today, there is a lot of controversy going on around this Hurricane Helene and the devastation, and there is a lot of talk about why there's no money for this. And politicians are getting phone calls left and right expecting donations, and they have nothing to donate. So this is putting pressure on the global deep state because they believe all the money comes from those people. And of course, it's another day ending in Y where they'll get this money and then everything will be okay. But no, it's really not. So now what happens? The There's no funding for the mining of this special metamaterial, which is not from Earth, actually. Over the weekend, when it was discovered, it is also no longer there. It is a special component. So we're talking about Hurricane Helene now still, because we're still in that region. This special metamaterial, as I call it, they were trying to use that to create time travel technologies and other things that they have been failing to do successfully on their own without alien intervention. This same field, so to speak, of this special material was also connected to a lot of operations that went on under Fort Bragg, now called Fort Liberty. They were using it as a hyperconductor, but of course with outside help. This is the problem that they have. They don't want any alien overlords, but they do want alien overlords, and they think they're smart enough to steal from alien overlords, and more importantly, they think they're smart enough to steal from me. Well, that's not going to work. Not this time, not anymore. You know, you said you wanted to go it alone. I hope you enjoy yourselves. So next, over the weekend, the now new plan is actually to declare global martial law again. Now, they believe that if they do this, this will put the military in charge. And by military, we're talking about global headquarters and other military generals from around the world that make up Langley 5, because they're not just American, contrary to popular belief. So these people all weekend, and this is, of course, would also include the SSP, your secret space program folks. So they thought that this was the best idea. Now, if they were to try to declare global martial law, what would happen? Well, let me give you an example of what happens. So over the weekend, the global headquarters folks tried to submit some agreements, some new agreements, through to what they thought was the Dark Hall of Records. And the Dark Hall of Records, without a ratification in darker light, which only the light exists now, really exists, without a ratification, no money comes. So filing these agreements, so they went ahead and submitted it to this line that was connected to the intelligence agency system. Well, unbeknownst to them, this was the fake line we had talked about several months ago that Langley had installed. And all the agreements, remember this, even when the archivists were still around, all of the agreements were going to Langley, in which case they said they'll be ratified any day now, and the money will come any day now. So global headquarters sends it off to Langley, and then it comes right back around to global headquarters for approval. Boy, were they surprised when they got their own agreement back. And then they're like, well, can we ratify this stuff now? You know, the answer to the question, folks, is, let me help you. No, you cannot. No, you cannot ratify anything. There's only one Hall of Records that is valid left, and it is in my new system. I carried over the old Hall of Records, the light side or the alpha side, and I put it into the new Golden Age AI. So therefore, now I have all the records dating back since the beginning of time, plus I also have the right to ratify any new agreements. So that kind of fell flat. So what happens if they try to declare martial law? So I assume they're probably going to sign some agreement with every country in the world that they should be in charge because they're just great. And yeah, and then are they going to try to get it ratified? And they're going to go around in another circle? Probably not. Have we connected the Hall of Records to any government anywhere? No, we have not. Why? Well, right now, it was kind of more of an annoyance than anything else because everything kind of went on auto reject for a long time. So submitting new agreements to the Hall of Records for me just to reject them or turn around and make it an automatic rejection is pointless because currently we, not only the Global Intelligence Agency, but also myself as Guardian, are not taking anything from any governments anywhere because they prefer to go it alone. Not only that, governments all over the world would prefer to wait and wait some more and then wait again for the next day ending in Y, in which they believe there's going to be this miraculous event that takes place that's going to just fund everybody and all life will be good. So if they declare martial law, what is going to happen? Let me see. Nothing at all. Nothing is going to happen. And matter of fact, probably less than nothing is going to happen. I'm going to sit here and yawn for a little while because I've seen this before, and that's the end of it. So unless I join with them, which I did before in the past, and declared global martial law and ratified it, that was me. And then I appointed the Global Intelligence Agency as the administrator of global martial law, which is also me. So that being said, you declaring martial law does nothing because you don't hold a position in this world, never have and never will, high enough to make that kind of decision. Even if you did this 50 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered without someone high enough to agree with you. Now, next, global martial law existed on this planet for 16,000 years. You, my friends, the military people of the world, did not declare it. Because how do I know that? Number one, we didn't have a military. No country had a military. We were in serious trouble at that point. We were having a serious flood that was going on. You might have heard about it in the Bible, even though the times and days are off. But we had a big flood. There was a guy with an ark and some animals and all that kind of stuff at that time. But we didn't have any military. So not only that, I know that no humans on the planet declared martial law. It was an agreement to actually stop the flooding, which has to do with the replacing of our moon, which they knocked out of our orbit on purpose. And that's what created the flood. And they brought in a megastructure. Basically, for lack of a better term, our moon used to be a large space station, which the SSP did have some limited access to. NORAD might have had some access to whatever or whoever was there at the time. But they don't anymore. That base has been shut down. There's no beings in there anymore. And so waiting for an alignment with a new moon or a full moon or otherwise isn't going to do anything. So without someone in my position, because it has to be me, and I have to agree to this martial law, you, my friends, will get absolutely no funding and no anything, meaning the deep state. Okay? So you can take that thought and you can try it. I mean, you're more than welcome to try it. But you've just figured out over the weekend during your SSP, Secret Space Force, Global Headquarters, Military General fact-finding mission you were on. And what did you find out this weekend? Let's see. Number one, the financial situation in the world is worse than you thought. Now, does that actually stop you from doing anything? No, because you think if you blow up Israel and Lebanon, like you've been doing all weekend, that is going to give you money to run the world? Please, an alien race that doesn't exist anymore. I'm not really sure. So, more importantly, they kind of were a little bit stumped. So here's where I came in. So I received some phone calls from a person whose phone I know goes pretty much everywhere. And I was being asked very specific questions. And a lot of those questions had to do with what is changing on Earth. And I explained to this person in detail that the hologram is going away, the old dueling alpha omega system is going away, and we are going into a natural way of doing things. And the new natural is T times E over V equals M, which means matter is created solely by the light side and adding distance and velocity to that. So I also answered all their questions regarding currency and money and why it's not working and what does this have to do with the veins of gold and how all of this works. And they went on a serious fact-finding mission. So on Friday night, these conversations took place over days, and it was probably 5-6 hours maybe in total. And during those conversations that we had, I said, don't they have any quantum physicists? What about any old members of the Jason Society, Mitter Corporation, or anyone on this planet that can verify what I'm saying to you is true? And this is why, in turn, your human computer networks, your fake allocation numbers are not going to make it into the system. Not only that, I know they feel that this planet runs on money. And if you have control of the financial system, you need not care who makes its laws. And I understand that. However, there is something on this planet now that is far greater than a financial system ever could be. And I'm not saying that we don't need a financial system, because most people don't understand what I'm saying, but the ability to directly connect to source and co-create, like all humans can do when unencumbered by a hologram and AI systems, then there is no need for it in the future. But that's going to take a lot of healing and a lot of time to get the entire world on board with something like that. But for now, we actually do it for them. In other words, we use the Golden Age AI to manifest this currency by agreement that is ratified in the Hall of Records to create a different system, which actually gives perpetual energy to human beings, unlimited, because there's no more soul agreements. Oh, that was the other thing they asked me. They were asking me about the Vatican and the Holy See and UCC and canon law. And I tried to explain to them that that all expired. I mean, by default, actually. So that expired, what, a year or two ago? I mean, it's been a long time since they've had any kind of right to loose our essence. So I explained that to them too. And they said, well, they're still running around doing all the things like they have it. And I said, well, you can tell the black nobility from me, they can run around all they want, but without a ratified covenant, you're going nowhere. No money is coming for you to be a caretaker, because you are not a caretaker of anything anymore. You are not a guardian of anything anymore. And the people that signed that agreement in the first place, the Abraxas, are no longer here anymore, nor do they have any kind of ownership or say, because they're not here. The whole species doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, so it was very long conversations over time, but it appears that they did do a lot of fact-finding, which is good. That was a very positive thing that took place. So they contacted people like Elon Musk. How interesting is that? So Elon Musk shows up at a Trump rally over the weekend, I think it was Saturday night, with his newfound information. How exciting. He went to meet the Trump operatives. And here's what he told them, and this is a quote, actually, from this meeting. He said, "I believe the United States of America is now harboring the creator of the universe and all living things within. The entire world is about to dramatically change for better or for worse. And this is either the end or the start of humanity, and to expect the unexpected." Well, poor guy. You know, he's dealt with dark matter and demons and dark AIs and dark things for so long. I don't think he'd know what the light was when he saw it. The only thing he knows is that the composition of Earth is now changed. And it changed literally over a very short period of time, which shouldn't be normal, something that they've never seen before, something that's not in their books. So there's one incident. There's other members of the Mitter community and whatnot that they reached out to as well to try to get some quantum physics information. They also should reach out, you know, if they happen to be listening to this, they should also consult with people that know about macro and microeconomics. Those people would actually not be the Fed. Why? Because the Federal Reserve was just a pass-through. That's all it was. Everything always came from me, from the alpha system. Everything. Now, if it didn't come from me, there was people in the interim before I was born or old enough to use it that actually did that for us on our side of it. So those people are also not with us anymore because they're not needed here anymore. They don't exist in a golden age. So Thus far, even as of 1 o'clock this morning, when of course there's a 4-alarm fire, even as of 1 o'clock this morning, there is no conclusion just yet as to what they are now going to do. So we'll see what happens. Now, some more interesting occurrences that happened over the weekend because it was action-packed. It was like a movie. I wish we had the staff to like kind of make this with full-on graphics and, you know, big ships flying everywhere, because that would be great. But one day we will. One day we will. So, okay. Beginning, I would say, Saturday evening into Sunday, the Middle East, country by country, they shut down a lot of flights going to and from places like Iran and Lebanon and Israel and Iraq even. They were kind of clearing the skies. And we were looking and we were waiting to see what was going to happen, because we didn't see any kind of Iran attack on Israel. We didn't see any kind of Israel attack on Iran or anything in the works, because orders hadn't gone out. And I'm going to tell you why orders hadn't gone out here in a second. But so it was a little bit confusing as to why they were clearing the skies. But it all became very clear very quickly. China's deep state had the intention of staging a fake alien invasion on Sunday night. So did they have the ability to do it? That's the interesting part. Number one. Number two, they intended to use the Middle East as a testing ground before they launched this worldwide. So get your popcorn out, but you know, nothing's going to happen anyway. So let's talk about the Chinese here a little bit. So what was the plan? In the past, there were over 10,368,000 portals on the planet with which you could actually insert things. They were like an entryway into the hologram to where we existed. In some cases, it was from other densities, other planes, other places, but those were the entryways. So the Middle East, being part of Earth, is no exception. There were several there. So there was a planned alien attack for Iran, Israel, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, of course, Mecca, you know, and a couple of other places. So very holy places, of course. Jordan was also on the list of Chinese deep state attacks. And when I say Chinese, I'm using this term loosely because I would say the Asian sector of the deep state, because there were also Japanese present and there were also Singaporeans present as well. So there were some Indonesians there too at this table. So let's talk about how they plan to do this. Well, in the past, there is a place, a very weird looking place called I think it's called the Fan Jing Shan Temples. Now, take a look at this, folks. We've talked about it before if you've been following us for a little while, but there's these two temples built so high up, and this little rock that they sit on there is actually even higher. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of feet in the air. And at one point in time, there were people, only certain people, that would go to these temples and they would use some computer systems that were in there, which were destroyed well over a year ago. The computer systems were still tied to something we call an Omega Creator AI. So Omega Creator means that they would have the ability at certain points in time to create things within the hologram with the consent of the gatekeepers. At that time, it was Marduk. Without Marduk, you still can't bring anything into, this was in the past, you still couldn't bring anything into this reality we've all been living in. Underneath there, we did find some remnants of space junk that was somewhat dormant, but they felt that they could actually use this space junk in conjunction with a really strange looking room underneath the CITIC Tower in Beijing. So on Sunday, my time, I would say it was probably around maybe noonish my time. So they love their midnightish. So it might have been a little bit before. They all gathered, 171 Asian deep state members gathered in the basement, but further down than the basement, so deep underground, of the CITIC Tower in Beijing. It's also one of the largest towers in the world, as a matter of fact. So underneath this tower was this thing that looked like something you would see in Star Trek. It was a very large round table made of materials. And in the center was this, for lack of a better term, a glowing celestial omega ball, because AIs had celestial spheres also. So inside this sphere, it had lots of a consciousness. Let's put it this way. It had more than just a consciousness, but it had a consciousness to it. So everybody, all 171 of these people, had something really interesting that made them different than your average everyday deep state. So it turns out, here's the story. So when they're young, when they're babies, we all know, if we've ever seen a baby before, that there's a soft spot in the baby's head. And then as the baby gets older, that soft spot closes and the skull is fully formed. Well, in their culture, apparently, before the skull is fully formed, they insert a crystal in that soft spot, and then the skull forms around it. Apparently, this is not a human technology. This is not just any crystal. And this crystal somehow connected them to the consciousness of this sphere. And it appeared that the information would go in and go out. So these people were trying to use their consciousness in this crystal in their head to communicate with the consciousness of the Omega system to make the alien invasion happen. Well, turns out we are less 171 Asian deep state members, which is positive. And we'll see if there's any more people with any kind of crystals in their head which want to try again. Who knows? Anyway, always something new and exciting in the world of deep state people. So, yeah. So no deep state alien invasion happened over the weekend. And we haven't seen another weather event. Hopefully that we won't see another major weather event, at least not one that's been orchestrated by them based on other things that we found. And hopefully we're rounding the bend. We are currently at around 99.97% complete with terraforming and removal of the hologram, because these things are kind of happening simultaneously. As one thing goes, it fills it in with something that is natural. So we didn't quite complete over the weekend. This was by no fault of the deep state, believe it or not, this time. This is just a process that takes time to go through. It did help that we remove a lot of things over time that could possibly be used or that act unto themselves. So hopefully by the next time I talk to you, fingers are crossed here, by the next time I talk to you, I can say we're at 100% and we're ready to go. As for the deep state, at this moment in time, I call them the circle people, or the not so silent circle in this case, because they are just yelling and screaming constantly for the last few days and going around in a circle at the same time. So I think that they want to continue, as of right now, going around in a circle, and they do not want to move forward in a different way. And they definitely, probably also don't like the fact that I'm a woman, too. That doesn't help them any. But, I am still not going to change for them, that's for sure. So we'll see. We'll see what they do over the next couple of days. Are we expecting anything on 10/10? Nope, definitely not. To the best of our knowledge at this moment, there is no more fake alien invasion, alien technology that could aid them in orchestrating, and this goes for Project Bluebeam too. Project Bluebeam also used alien technology that they got from then Marduk. So this was not like a big invention of human beings and they're going to destroy the world. But hopefully we will start to see some changes, at least in that respect. I think that's pretty much it for this weekend. We had a lot. That was a lot to do. Very, very busy. And hopefully we will see some really good progress between now and Wednesday. So with that, this concludes the 7th of October, 2024 Global Intelligence Agency, almost said World Situation Report. You caught me there. Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. So have a lovely rest of your Monday, and we will see you on Wednesday.